Good evening, all of you.
Good
Today
evening.
is the 53rd session of the गोल्डन चर्चा. इस सेशन में आपका सबका स्वागत है. आज का टॉपिक है इंसॉल्वेंसी. अनुब्रत गांगुली सर इस इंसॉल्वेंसी के ऊपर बोलेंगे. उससे पहले विशाल जालान जी स्पेशल एड्रेस करेंगे. ओवर टू विशाल जालान जी फॉर स्पेशल एड्रेस. आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही भैया. थोड़ा स्लो आ रही है आवाज. हाँ, आप बोल सकते हैं लेकिन थोड़ा सा तेज होने ज्यादा बेटर रहेगा आई थिंक.
Hello.
हाँ, ठीक आ रही है.
Hmm. Good evening, everyone. At the very beginning, I would like to congratulate and sincerely appreciate the EIRC team, especially our chairman, sir, for conceptualizing and consistently running Golden Charcha. A platform like this has been become something we all look forward to, not just for learning, but also for exchanging idea and staying connected with the profession. It is a wonderful initiative that reflects the proactive and progressive approach of our region. Coming to today's topic, I must say that they are both extremely relevant and thought-provoking. The first one is IBC, a boom or ban, is a subject close to every finance and insolvency profession. On one hand, IBC has brought much needed discipline and seriousness into the credit system. On the other hand, practical issues, delay, and ground level challenges often make us pause and rethink whether IBC is truly a boom or slowly become a ban. Is a something that deserves healthy discussion. And today's session provide exactly that opportunity. On second topic, NPA horizon, bright or overcast, is equally interesting. We often hear encouraging numbers about declining NPAs and improved recoveries, which surely give us hope. At the same time, changing economic conditions and new stress area remind us that the NPA story is still unfolding. Understanding where we are heading is a crucial for all of us as a professional, advising bank, corporate, and stakeholders. I am confident that today's speaker, CA Anubrata Gangoly ji, will simplify this complex issue, share practical insight, and help us look at this subject with clarity and balance. Once again, my compliment to Chairman Vishnuji and his team for his excellent initiative, and my thank to all his to speaker and participant for being part of this today's Golden Charcha. Thank you. Wishing you a very encouraging and insightful session. Over to Chimpuji.
Thank you, Vishal Jalan ji. Today's speaker is our Dada Anubrato Gangoly. He is a chartered accountant and an insolvency professional. He has about 12 years of industry experience in various sectors, followed by 15 years of experience in practice. I request to Dada to take today's session.
Thank you both, Chimpu ji and Vishal ji. And also thanks to the EIRC team, as very rightly mentioned by Vishal ji, that it's a great initiative that on a regular basis a small session takes place. Now, not only for the participants, even for the speakers, it forces them at least to revise some of the academic topics before speaking. So, in a way, it is also beneficial to the speaker because his own concepts he needs to do a little bit of homework, so उस बहाने कुछ पढ़ाई भी हो जाती है. So in a way it's good for everyone and we get to see people, our friends. C Institute's uniqueness is that all of us are friends here in this community. बस 3 साल में कुछ महीनों के लिए हम कुछ दिन के लिए एनिमी बन जाते हैं लेकिन उसके बाद फिर से फ्रेंड बन जाते हैं. So that beautiful spirit this institute has, which I must appreciate. Now, the topic that I want to discuss on, before I want to discuss that topic, I would like to ask myself and the persons, everybody out here, is that why are we having this session? If you actually think about it, what is the objective of this session? So let me give you a few options, and I will only keep answering whether those options are correct answers or not. The first option is that this session will help us learn insolvency and bankruptcy code. The answer to that, no, it will not help you learn insolvency and bankruptcy code. This session will show us the different ways in which an insolvency professional can practice. A chartered accountant can become an insolvency professional, use that to augment his professional income, show various lines of professional opportunity in this field. No, it will not do that either. Then what is this session going to help us with? This session is only going to give us an awareness about the insolvency landscape, some of its advantages, disadvantages, and enhance our general idea about this particular area. Then the second question should be that then why are we having this session? The answer to that is that we are all professionals, we are all educated people. We represent ourselves before our clients and our employers. So, for us to have a decent knowledge base in various areas related to our profession always indirectly helps us in the work that we do. You may not actually practice as an insolvency professional, but if you know the basic idea about this enactment and the things associated with it in your normal practice, indirectly it will help. Let me give an example. I never practiced indirect tax, but I learned indirect tax because it was there in the same final syllabus. After that, whatever we learned washed away and a new law came in GST. So I could have told myself that since I will not practice GST, why even know what it is? But did I do that? I did not. I had to learn it. Though I'm not an expert in the field of GST. But as a chartered accountant, I should have idea about what all is taking place in the world around me. That is the main objective of this session. Now, next, as we actually get into the topic, the next point that comes is very thought provoking. बस सोचिए अपने आप में, why do we actually need IBC? Does the country need IBC? Let us go into the historical background. You see, the modern banking system in India started way back in 1860. The Bombay Stock Exchange is older than the Tokyo Stock Exchange. I'm speaking with data, huh? This is a fact. Now, the banking system in India successfully operated from 1860 till 2002. For the first 10, 12 years, even the Contracts Act was not there. Contracts Act came in 1872, we all know that. So from 1872 till 2002, the entire banking industry survived on the fundamental commercial laws established by the Contracts Act. Then what happened after that? In 2002, a new law came in called the SURFACE, which all of you are aware of. So क्या हम सरफेस के बिना सरवाइव नहीं कर पा रहे थे इतने साल? इसकी क्या जरूरत थी? See, the need came from the changing human value system. If you go to Companies Act 1956 and press Control F and give the word fraud, you will see that it has been used 13 times in 1956 Act. In 2013 Act, it has been used 57 times. So ये दिखाती है कि our thought process has also changed. So the law also needs to evolve accordingly. Now let us go back to the simple mechanism of borrowing. Any individual or a corporate house will borrow from the bank by pledging something, which we commonly known as mortgaging or whatever. In Contracts Act, it is mentioned as bailment. We have all learned about bailments. We have all learned about guarantees. One person can give guarantee to a loan, stand guarantor to a loan. The borrower can pledge some of his products to the bank and take a loan. So if he does not pay off the loan, the bank has a lien on that particular asset. And we have also learned in the Contracts Act that the bankers have general lien. So even if you have an account in some other branch or you have some other asset on which the bank has access on, then he can even croak that asset. So with that strength, the bank was operating so far. But now, Under the Contracts Act, the right of the bank was only ex contractu. It was not ex lege, meaning there was no law which was empowering the bank to take the asset. It could only take the asset after filing a case, winning that case, and getting the strength from a court order. कोर्ट की ऑर्डर लेके तभी वो आपका एसेट ले सकता था. वो होते होते 20, 25, 30, 40 साल निकल जाएगा दिस if the case moves fast. So it was then that the SURFACE Act was enacted, which gave the bank certain powers. See, people may even argue, some people have argued that the SURFACE Act is against the principles of natural justice. कोई बोल सकता है चाहे तो बात करने के लिए. But then that debate was well settled, by the Supreme Court long back, that yes, it does follow the principle of natural justice, because SURFACE is only giving the bank an empowerment to take over the asset without waiting for the court order. Got it? Now, in 2002 से आराम से चल रहा था सरफेसी से, तो क्या जरूरत थी आईबीसी लाने का 2016-17 में? Now, the reason for bringing IBC in is that insolvency and bankruptcy code is not a recovery mechanism. That is the fundamental principle and the key takeaway, first takeaway from today's lecture. IBC एक collection की method है नहीं. IBC has been designed to improve the macroeconomic environment of the country. That is the whole and sole purpose of the law. So the objective is not to recover, but to resolve. That is the reason why it is the person who is doing the job is known as a resolution professional. So how does it work? See, unlike SURFACE, in case of IBC, there are three types of people who can initiate the bankruptcy proceedings against a company. In SURFACE, there is no bankruptcy proceedings. It is only recovery of an asset. Who can do it? Only the person to whom that asset has been pledged can do it, which means only the bank can do it. But IBC में क्या है? There are three category of people who can file the case against a defaulting company. Defaulting company को हम क्या कहेंगे? उसका नाम दिया गया है corporate debtor, CD. So CD is called the corporate debtor who has taken a loan from the bank by pledging some of his assets. Now, in that situation, that corporate debtor can be sued for bankruptcy by three categories of people. One is the banker, that is known as the financial creditor. His financial creditor say he has taken the loan, he can initiate the bankruptcy process. Two, this is uniqueness of IBC, which was not there in SURFACE. An operational creditor can also initiate the bankruptcy process. Say, for example, let us take the example of a company which has not taken any loan from a bank, but it has defaulted in paying its suppliers. In the earlier regime, there was no tool available in the hands of the supplier or the operational creditor, as it is formally known as OC for short, to initiate any bankruptcy process on the company. They could sue for liquidation under the Companies Act 1956, if you remember, that creditors could sue for liquidation in the High Court, under whose jurisdiction that company fell. Other than that, there was no tool. Now, in the IBC, the OC can also file a case of insolvency against the corporate person. Three is the corporate person itself can file for bankruptcy, saying that I have a feeling that I will not be able to handle my financial position and I will not be able to repay my debts. So it is better that I only apply and voluntarily become insolvent. Right? So there are these three situations where the FC, OC, or the CD itself can file for insolvency. Where in the National Company Law Tribunal under whose jurisdiction that company falls. So once that case is filed, the original thought process was that within a period of 14 days, the NCLT has to decide whether IBC insolvency is admissible or not. Now, life is decidedly not a bed of roses. हम अच्छे सोचते हैं, अच्छे कर नहीं पाते. So this 14 days never takes place. So it has now gone into years. I have got a case which was pre-lockdown period. Eventually it was, 2024 it became insolvent. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that the NCLT will establish what? NCLT will establish whether the person who has filed for insolvency, whether there is any money actually due to him or not. Whether his claim, the basis on which he is saying that this money is due to me, whether that claim is legitimate or not. Now, in case of a financial creditor, it is comparatively easier. Why? Because in case of a financial creditor, the loan will be established through a loan agreement, the sanction letter, the disbursal of the loan, and the outstanding position can be visible from the ledger position of the bank. So that is proof. The problem starts when it is a case with an operational creditor. In case of an operational creditor, the challenge lies is when the operational creditor says that, this is my, filing for insolvency. This company has not paid me, or this company has not given my money. I've raised my bill. I've done my work. Company files a case back saying that आपका इस काम में ये गलती था, वहां पे पेंटिंग ठीक से नहीं हुआ था, that material had defect, this, that. So the accepted principle that is being followed is that if the company raises a doubt on the claim after the suit has been filed, then that is not valid. The dispute between the company and its supplier with regards to the payment and with regards to the genuineness of the supply should have pre-existed before the filing for insolvency. If it was not, then the OC's case will be admitted and the company will be declared insolvent. The third is when the company itself applies, saying that, we will not be able to establish. Now, these cases are generally viewed with a lot of suspicion. The courts want enough proof that the person has actually defaulted or is in a position to default. So, generally accepted norm is that only when you have received a Section 13(2) notice under SARFAESI, it is only then that you voluntarily apply for insolvency. So ठीक है, उसने अप्लाई किया या फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिटर ने अप्लाई किया और ओसी ने अप्लाई किया, then that application was heard, its genuineness was examined by the NCLT. They have heard both sides and they finally came to the conclusion that yes, this company should be declared insolvent. So the date of the order is known as the insolvency commencement date. That's a very crucial date because all the timelines start from that date. Next is the company comes under the purview of an interim resolution professional who is known as IRP. How is the IRP appointed? If it is a financial creditor, then the IRP is recommended by the financial creditor at the time when he files the case for, insolvency against the city. Could I make myself clear? So if it is a banker who is filing that case, then when he is filing that case, at that time only the name of the financial IP who will be appointed IRP will be given after taking his consent, and various other formalities are there. I'm not going into that minute details. And it goes. Now, if it is an operational creditor, he may or he may not also recommend an IP to act as IRP. In such cases, the NCLT, based on recommendation of IBBI, appoints a person, empaneled person, to become the resolution professional. In case of self also, the person can recommend at the time of filing for insolvency, but NCLT may or may not change it also. If NCLT want, they can change that also and appoint somebody else as recommended by IBBI to be the resolution professional. Now, this interim resolution professional, IRP, has a very crucial role to play. His job is to make a public announcement and ask for claimants to submit their claims to him, which he needs to examine and approve. Approval basis is based on the fact that the claim should have arisen prior to the insolvency commencement date. One small example will clarify that if a GST demand notice came after the insolvency commencement date, then that GST demand will not be a part of the claim. Only if there was a pre-existing GST demand, then the GST department can file for a claim. All such claims like GST, income tax, etc., will be treated as operational creditors. They will not be financial creditors, they will be operational creditors. Employees' dues. So the amounts due on or before the insolvency commencement will be treated as legitimate claims. And on the insolvency commencement date, a moratorium will start on the company. So no new cases or legal notices can be served by the company or on the company. The company may continue as a going concern, but then that operation has to be run by the IRP or the RP and not by the directors because their powers are suspended. So bank accounts also change, the signatories change and the RP becomes the signatory of the bank account of the CD. And based on the claims that he has received and he has approved, a committee of creditors is formed. Now, what is this committee of creditors? Is a very, very crucial role in the insolvency process. Committee of the creditors, if there is any financial creditor, then that financial creditor or those financial creditors form the committee of creditors and have a voting ratio in the proportion of their dues or admitted claims. That means the exact term on the proportion of their admitted claims. So bank kitna kya outstanding hai? That will be the ratio in which the financial creditor will decide. Now, if there is no financial creditor, then the operational creditors who have timely filed their claims will become the committee of creditors again on that same principle of the ratio in which their admitted claims are. Now, the first meeting of the committee of creditors will be convened by the IRP, and it is on that day that the committee of creditors will confirm the IRP as an RP, that is a interim resolution professional to resolution professional, and fix his remuneration. It may also on the first committee of creditors meeting, COC meeting it is called in short, replace him and appoint another person in his place to act as RP. तो उसका फीस का क्या होगा? From the time of admission, he has done a lot of work. The most crucial work he has done. So इसमें पहले problem होता था earlier, but now NCLT has given clear directive that he will not hand over the charge to the RP unless he's given a reasonable remuneration for the service that he has rendered. वो मिलता नहीं अल्टीमेटली वो अलग बात है वो मिलते मिलते anyway that is another story. Now, once the COC is formed, the COC will monitor the RP, and RP has to act, and his decisions will need to be approved by the COC. So, what is RP's role at that point of time? A very crucial role of the RP is to keep the company going, meaning timely filing of GST returns, TDS deductions, TDS returns, if there are payments, otherwise nil returns. If the company is a going concern, then issue orders, carry on with the business, I know one RP in Gurgaon who had taken over a Maruti car dealership when it was in insolvency. And during that period, he had a sale higher than what was the normal sale in the previous years. I saw it in his WhatsApp status. So this is not official information, but nevertheless, they were celebrating 1 year of his tenure as RP, where there was a record sale. Anyway, now he will run the company during that time and he will make efforts to resolve the company. What is the meaning of resolve the company? He will invite applications from people as expression of interest to take over this company's management. And by doing that, pay money and do it. And now this money will be appropriated to the claimant so that their dues are cleared in full or in part in certain order of priority, which I'll come to later. Now, once he receives a proposal, this proposal is placed before the committee of creditors. If he receives more than one proposal, then all the proposals are placed before the committee of creditors, who in its meeting will deliberate, discuss, and decide which application should be accepted. Person whose application is accepted is commonly known as Successful Resolution Applicant, SRA. Now, you may ask me that who will become the SRA? So simple, whose bid will be the highest? Not necessarily. Once again, I want to remind that IBC is not a recovery tool. IBC is a resolution process. So the financial standing, the credibility, the capability of the applicants to run the company, their liquidity position is also a factor that the committee of creditors will take into account before deciding who should be the successful applicant. It may so be that one person has given that we will pay 100 rupees, the other person may be given 90 rupees also. They may select the 90 rupees. There can be another factor is the timeline that he has given for payment. Maybe the person says that I will pay 100 rupees, but I'll pay in 3 months. The other one says I'll pay 90 rupees, I'll pay in 21 days. So the bank may be more interested to, I should not say bank, the committee of creditors, which is in a way the bank, may be more interested in the timeliness of the collection than the amount. So after that decision is taken, the decision of the committee of creditors is final. I only went through a resolution process in 2024 where, sorry, 25, where this is already 26, I forgot that, where there were two applicants and the COC had taken a decision to take one of them as the successful applicant. And subsequently, the other applicant filed a case against me in the NCLT saying that, I have, fraudulently or whatever, by collusion given it to the other party, which is not right. Then NCLT eventually, after two hearings, threw out that application and said that it has been intentionally filed to delay the process. It is baseless because the commercial wisdom of the committee of creditors and the resolution professional who is conducting that meeting is a final judgmental authority to decide whether it is the right person to take or not to take. Now, once that is done and the correct resolution applicant is selected, he will make the necessary payments and handover of the management will be given to this successful applicant who will continue to run the company. Here, a crucial point that comes is that once the payment of the successful resolution applicant has been appropriated to the claimants, all other dues of the company stands extinguished. Is that clear? See, company is no longer liable to make any payments which remained unpaid through the IBC mechanism. If one has not lodged a claim, or even if one has lodged a claim of 100 rupees, he has got 30 rupees as the settlement amount, then remaining 70, there is no court, no forum in this country which will give him the right to get. Now, you can say that this is extremely unfair. This is a bane. IBC is a bane, not a boon. But भाई साहब एक चीज अब सोचिए, do you think otherwise also he would have got that money? Because if the company's finances are not there, what he will file a case, he will win that case, he'll issue a demand notice, he'll try to mortgage his property, do whatever. You cut his throat also, you would not have got that money because that money was not there. But you would have spent decades of fighting cases uselessly and helplessly and spending the lakhs of rupees, but you would not have got the payment. So here at least you are cutting out and amputating. होता है ना कि there's some severely infected part of the finger, you have to amputate it. Very sad, very unfortunate. But it is better than the poison spreading throughout the body. So that is a counter logic that it is not a bane, it is a wound. Also, IBC is a time-bound process. The RP has to file explanations as to why the delay took place and all that. So, which was not there in the earlier process. You fight a case, you keep recovering whenever you can recover. 1973, 74 cases are coming up sometimes in debt recovery tribunal also. It comes out in the newspaper also at times. There was a due of 1 lakh rupees in 1981, which was a huge money those days. Nowadays, people may have spent 5 lakh, 50 lakh rupees to fight that case by this time. No. Anyway, so these are some of the advantages of IBC. Issues are there. Issues are there in terms of lack of infrastructure, inadequate number of judges. The time taking is much longer than what is intended to be, but the intention is good. Next is that if the resolution does not take place, there is no applicant received, or the only applicant whose application has come, the COC has not approved it, then the NCLT orders a liquidation and a liquidator takes over. And then the process is more or less similar to the liquidation process that was there in the earlier act also. There used to be official liquidator, now it is called liquidator. Liquidator will then, form a stakeholder consultation committee. It is essentially a continuation of the COC. The name changes because the advice of the SCC is not binding on the liquidator, unlike COC. In case of a COC, the advice of the COC was binding on the resolution professional. But in case of a liquidation, the advice of the SCC is not binding on the liquidator. He may choose differently, but then he has to inform the court within NCLT within 5 days as to why he has thought otherwise. Now, um, coming back to the point, so when liquidation is announced, then the SCC will meet. They will do a valuation of the assets. Then they will publish an auction notice, fix an auction date, take the EMD, hold the auction, sell it to the highest bidder. If the auction fails, then does a re-auction. Maybe they can reduce the reserve price. There is a process given that you can reduce the reserve price maximum up to 10% of the previous occasion. And only on one occasion, you can reduce it by 25%. So in the next revised auction, maybe there will be an applicant and there will, sorry, a bidder, and accordingly, after the auction, the highest bidder will be awarded the sold the assets off, and again these proceeds will be distributed in a manner laid down by the act. What is that priority matrix? The priority matrix is the first comes the secured financial creditors, that is the banks whose assets have been mortgaged. Then comes the employee dues, sorry, workmen's dues, then the employee dues, then the dues of the government are ranked at par with the operational creditors. So in the resolution plan itself, it is decided that, of the total amounts due, if this is the money that we get, then in what ratio will be distributed? And that is commonly known as a haircut. This term is going around in the market a lot. That the bank maybe have a 30% haircut, the OCs may have 80% haircut. I had a resolution done recently when the bank had a 12 or 13% haircut, which is mostly of the penal interest, because the claim includes the penal interest. So 12-13% just takes care of a part of the penal interest. But the OCs had a higher haircut, unfortunately, which could not be helped. Now, why do this? You may ask. Why not sell the assets in the old manner like SURFACE? Take the assets, sell it and get it. So what is the advantage of IBC? So the advantages are two. There are two advantages. One is that when you sell it as a resolution plan and a resolution applicant comes in and he knows that he gets the company without old liabilities, not just the asset, but the company's goodwill, the intrinsic worth, its market, its customer base. If it is listed in the stock market, then the listing continues. In IBC period, even if the compliance is not done, you can seek condonation and stock exchange will allow you to continue. So the intrinsic worth of the company is generally much higher than just the price of the asset. For example, I resolved a listed company where the bank had been trying Surface earlier, but the resolution plan value that I got was almost 40 to 50% more than the highest money that they had got from a prospective buyer of the asset which they wanted to sell under Surface. Why? Because the intrinsic worth of the company was put across in the IBC process, which seldom happens, which cannot happen in a Surface. Another advantage of IBC is that if the company keeps operating, then overall to the macroeconomic environment, it helps. कंपनी बिजनेस किया डुबा दिया डूब गया ऐसे उड़ा के बेच दिया so that's the end of life. But if there is a process through which the borrowers who have failed in the loans also can continue doing their business, then banks would also be more interested to forward loans in the coming days, knowing that even if it is not successful, a new buyer can come in and go on. The bank may refinance that buyer also to continue the business, as banks do also. Now, I want to put a thought here that see if the rental laws, let's shift away from the topic for a minute. The tenancy laws. If the tenancy laws are such that they are highly beneficial to the tenants, that you can never take a tenant out of the place that he has taken on rent, never, then does it actually help the tenant or does not help the tenant? Apparently, it may seem that it is helping the tenant, but in long term, it doesn't, because landowners or house landlords will not want to give their house on rent. They will be so insecure. So in a way, IBC helps the borrowing process, because banks now know that I can ensure continuity of my borrower's business in most cases, and my loan can circulate again. Sorry. Another advantage of IBC is that it introduces a concept of PUFE transactions. What does PUFE stand for? Preferential, undervalued, fraudulent, extortionate. Let me repeat. Preferential, undervalued, fraudulent, extortionate. Let me quickly explain all four of them. Preferential transactions are those where it is seen that the corporate debtor, the CD, had in certain payments given preference to someone in a manner that if the company's assets had to be auctioned out in liquidation, or you know sold off in resolution, then the priority matrix of payouts, that person, whatever position he would have been, he is comparatively in an advantageous position in relation to that. So basically, I make a payment to someone who would not have otherwise got paid had the company gone into insolvency and the resolution plan taken and money distributed. Undervalued are those the company has entered into a transaction at a rate which is lower than what the rate ought to have been between a willing buyer and willing seller. Say, for example, you sold land. I got a case only where the corporate debtor had sold a land, and in the income tax return, it is clearly showing that the transaction value was lower than the market value. It was so easy to get their own declaration in their income tax return for the previous year. You know that capital gain computation, they have to show market value and transaction value. The transaction value was lower than the market value. So it is clearly undervalued transaction. Fraudulent transaction. Fraudulent transactions are those which are done with an intent to defraud creditors. Say, for example, I show an expense which is not an expense, so that my financial position becomes weaker. And in the event of my financial position getting weaker, my loan fails, I become insolvent. But in any case, the banks and the other claimants won't get the money because money has moved out. And last is extortionate. Extortionate is where I am being abused by an outsider, meaning I have taken a loan from somebody who has charged me interest much higher than what it ought to have been. Maybe this is also a tool of taking the money out that can be possible. So, what happens if the resolution professional can find out such transactions in a certain look back period? So look back periods are defined. Some cases it is 1 year, some cases it's 2 years, in some cases there is unlimited look back period. I am not getting into further elaboration on that. Then that itself is a 1 hour lecture. Then he can apply it to the NCLT, who in turn can direct the directors of the city to revert that money back to the city from their personal assets. So the corporate wheel is broken. By this process, the corporate wheel is broken. Sorry. So by this process, the corporate wheel is broken and the directors need to bring in. See, in the old Companies Act, there was a provision for operation and mismanagement, which is similar to that, but here it is easier to implement than it was there. Now, okay. Now, another interesting thing about IBC is that when a resolution plan is submitted by resolution applicants, there are certain eligibilities that he needs to meet. Because remember, you are not selling the asset, you're resolving the company. So whoever buys the company will continue with the business. So he has to be financially sound, which I mentioned earlier only. And another point is that he needs to be party eligible under 29A. Now, what is 29A? 29A is basically, again, 29A itself is a 1 hour lecture. But nevertheless, in 1 minute, if I have to explain that, I will say that 29A basically is telling that your financial behavior with banks should have been normal. If you yourself had been someone who, or whose company, or whose firm, or whose relative had been an NPA account somewhere, in some bank, anywhere, then you are not eligible to buy a company which is under insolvency. So basically, they are moving out. You know, in olden days, they used to say, no, such caste people should be kept out, type. It's a bad example to give, but basically, the banking system is saying that that category of people who have who have ill behaved or ill performed before banks should be kept out of the business society, so far as IBC is concerned. So in a way, it is a disincentive for your bad financial performance before the bank. So which is again indirectly helping the macroeconomic environment of the country. Are you getting my point? Now, the bane that the IBC is, as many people say, sometimes even I say, is that, you know, this settlement eventually happens, all old dues are written off, then there's a huge loss to many people. Sometimes bank even have a 80-90% haircut. OCs have a 90% haircut, 95% haircut. So IBC has failed. Many people say that. But the question that I will ask here is that failed in comparison to what? Immediately the answer will be surfacing. Sir, surfacing कर लेते कब का पैसा आ जाता कितना पैसा आ जाता. The answer to that is आपने कभी देखे हैं कि सरफेसी में वाकई कितना पैसा आया है? You haven't. Because the surface is operated within the confines of the bank and there is no visibility of its success or failure. IBC is completely transparent. Whatever is happening there, the information is available in public domain. So it is easy to criticize. So I would say that while we can visibly see the negatives of IBC, उसकी खराब, उसकी बुराई आंखों के सामने आ रहा है. But at least we now know what is bad about IBC. If you are operating something which is visible in public domain, that itself is a boon. Because your public accountability goes up. It is like like a listed company, unlisted company. You're in listed company, you are in public domain. So you have to be much more careful. Your disclosures are more, your this, everything is more. Whatever you're doing is visible to all. Widely held public. It is like that. IBC's operation is more visible, so we can easily criticize it. If we compare it with some other enactment, whether it is good or bad, we don't know. इसको कभी देखे ही नहीं है, लगता है बहुत सुंदरी है. हाँ, जिसको देखा बोलते हैं नहीं इसका नाक ठीक नहीं है, इसका ये है वो है. But that is where the challenge of IBC is. It is a talked about topic. Everybody has an opinion about it. It is visible in the public domain. It is a new enactment. Honestly, even judges are not very sure about it. Because you will see judgments getting reversed and re-reversed and re-reversed many times. IBC is only, in a way, 8 years old. Because 2 years I would deduct for lockdown and COVID shutdown. Effectively, 8-9 साल हुआ है. So for any law to stand the test of time and survive and establish itself is at least 15 years. As Vishalji was mentioning that the NPA has gone down, it's a fact that NPA has gone down. Whether it is due to IBC or not due to IBC is anybody's guess. Some people will say it is because of IBC, some people will say it's because of stronger banking practices. But What I will say is that whether it is IBC or it is SURFACE, the only way to reduce NPA is by preventive control. You cannot do a corrective control. आप रेड लाइट के पीछे छिपे खड़े रहोगे कि बाई चांस वो क्रॉस कर ले और उसको पकड़ के फाइन ले लूं. That type of policing will not help reduce NPA. You have to stand right in front of the signal so the car sees कि सर्जन खड़ा है, नंबर होने पे ही रुक जाने का है. That will only prevent accidents. No entry board दिखना चाहिए जबरदस्त. It cannot be hidden in one corner so that the person makes the mistake and I can take some money. That process of controlling, that process of controlling is in a way surface IBC, I would say, is a corrective control because the person has already failed. But the only way you can prevent or reduce NPA is by proper preventive control. And that is nothing but our age-old concurrent audit. We chartered accountants know it too well. If that is done in the right spirit, in the right manner, and of course with right fees, then all your trouble of NPA will slowly disappear from the country's horizon. Now, on this point of NPA, let us have some more sensitive or emotional discussions. NPA has reduced, but let me share some data with you that India's annual NPA write-off, I'm not saying NPA write-off, actual write-off of bad loan by the entire banking sector in this country is 0.5% of its GDP, which in a way is a very high percentage. Next is, if you compare the total amount that is written off every year as bad loans, that amount is more than the GDP of about 80 countries in the world. दुनिया में 80 ऐसे देश है जिनके जीडीपी से ज्यादा हमारा बैंक लोन राइट ऑफ है. बट यू कैन से आपके लोन वॉल्यूम भी हाई है, ठीक है, वट एवर इट इज, बट दैट इज वेस्टेड मनी. That is wasted money which can be carefully handled if timely action would have been taken with the right set of people in a preventive manner. So far, so good. Now, on whom is this IBC applicable? ये बात तो मैंने बोला ही नहीं. IBC is applicable on corporate borrowers and LLPs. That is to companies, limited companies, and to LLPs, and also to personal guarantors of corporate loans. PG of CD, which is a very common case because most of these private limited companies, the bank takes the personal guarantee of the directors before sanctioning the loan. The company goes insolvent and the directors go scot-free. So it has been put in this act that personal guarantors of corporate debtors will also be treated as corporate persons for the purpose of IBC, and insolvency process can operate on them in a manner similar to that in which it operates against the company. Now, Shri Anil Ambani ji, who himself owns a company that is bankrupt, filed a special leave petition in the Supreme Court challenging the constitutional validity of this part. It is personal guarantor of corporate person should not be treated as a corporate person for the purpose of insolvency. He appointed Mukul Rohatgi to appear for him. So we had a lot of jokes floating around that the person is insolvent, then how can he afford the fees of Mukul Rohatgi? Anyway, I do not know the answer to that question, so I will not delve on it. Now, after 2 years of intense legal battle, the Supreme Court finally ruled that it is very much constitutionally valid to treat personal guarantors of corporate loan as corporate borrowers because under the Contracts Act 1872, the liability of the personal guarantor is coexistent with that of the corporate borrower, with the borrower, in fact, whichever be the borrower. So the personal guarantor liability is coexistent with that of the corporate debtor. So in the same spirit, the personal guarantor of the corporate debtor is also a corporate person for the purpose of insolvency. So anyway, 2 years wasted in the process. So a lot of people got scot-free in that time. And then eventually the insolvency process on some of them have started. So let us hope that this insolvency mechanism eventually, in the long term, helps the country in terms of improving its economic environment, reducing its NPA, and bring more transparency to the stressed asset scenario, which is most crucial, most crucial. That this IBC process is, I hope, going to bring more transparency, which is the fundamental factor in deciding whether this exercise has been successful or not. So that more or less completes whatever I had to say. It was a very short overview, or I would say rather an awareness on insolvency and bankruptcy code. It was not insolvency and bankruptcy code. Clearly, it was an awareness on insolvency and bankruptcy code. So if the organizers are there, then I can hand over the mic and they can make some concluding comments and we can finish today's session. I don't know whether there's an option of hand raising and all that. So because we had 3 minutes, so if we could have, if possible, we could have taken some this thing what do you call question and answers. I saw a notification. I don't know what was that.
দাদা কোনো অসুবিধা হচ্ছে?
No, it is. I said that it's about 2 minutes left, so I more or less concluded. If there's anybody who had any questions,
না,
we
আপনি
can
যদি
discuss
কিছু
that.
বেশি বলতে চান তো বলতে পারেন, 5-7 মিনিট, কোনো অসুবিধা নেই।
You see, this was anyway intended to be an awareness lecture. So bolte chaile to I can speak for the next 5 hours also, because your 29A itself is a 1 hour lecture. UFE is a 1 hour lecture. You know, your
এক্স্যাক্টলি।
liquidation is a 2 hour lecture. Your resolution plan evaluation is a 1 hour lecture. So that will be endless. So as an awareness, more or less the overall law and its elements I discussed. So maybe if in a future date, any one of those topics I can speak on where it can be elaborated upon. So this is this.
কনক্লুড করবো স্যার না?
It's 5:59 also. So we have been able to keep up very punctually and timely. So many congratulations to the organizing team also, because I also organize programs और invariably delay होता है, extend होता है, शुरू करने में देर होता है. But I must compliment that Chimpu ji and Vishal ji. Of course, maybe it was a virtual program, so that way I would say आपका physical seminar में जाके देखेंगे कितना time पे चलता है. Anyway, please go ahead and conclude.
Is there any question from participation? नहीं, वहाँ पे अभी तक तो कोई। Is there any question from participation? No. There is no question from participation. Now we may conclude our sessions. Thank you, CA Anubrata Gangoly जी. हमारे दादा है, हमेशा इनका गाइडेंस और आशीर्वाद मिलते रहता है. And today's golden चर्चा सेशन on the topic of insolvency. दादा ने सही बोला कि insolvency अपने आप में एक वास्ट सिलेबस है. इसको 1 घंटा में कवर करना या कंक्लूड करना नॉट पॉसिबल. इसके लिए तो कम से कम 3-4 सेशन मिनिमम चाहिए. क्या दादा?
Correct, correct. एक टॉपिक में एक सेशन होना चाहिए. Every aspect of insolvency. See, this was not, as I told in the beginning, this session was not intended to teach insolvency bankruptcy code. Only an awareness session.
Brief knowledge.
It's a brief knowledge and awareness, because as chartered accountants, we will know about what is happening in our profession. That's all.
And what is the insolvency, how it's work, क्या किस
That's
बेसिस पे
it.
क्या होता है। तो थैंक यू अनुब्रत दा, एंड थैंक यू आवर पार्टिसिपेशन फॉर पेशेंट शेयरिंग। आज अनुब्रत दा ने हमको बेसिक नॉलेज दिया, इंसॉल्वेंसी क्या है, ये कैसे डील होता है, किस हिसाब से ऑपरेट होता है, इसमें क्या क्या प्रोस एंड कॉन्स है, इसके आगे अपने को क्या है। और अनुब्रत दा रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे आने वाले दिनों में हो सकता है अपने इस सेशन पे और इस टॉपिक पे फिर एक नया सेशन ले। एंड थैंक यू पार्टिसिपेशन ऑफ पेशेंट हेयरिंग। थैंक यू अनुब्रत दा।
Thank you.
And now we conclude our session.